7 or so more recommendations to work through. We're on airport noise contours. So Liz, I think we've had a lot of discussion about this matter. There are this recommendation here about adding in about Christchurch International Airport and some new text proposed. I'll start by saying I'm quite supportive of that, being crystal clear that map 9 represents the contours in the operative Canterbury Regional Policy Statement.
Yeah.
It's the role of the review of the RPS to look at any updates to those noise contours, because that will follow through the Schedule 1 process under the RMA, where parties can make submissions and be heard, and there's a right of appeal in terms of those processes. So I think where the officers have got to with their recommendations here are clear, and I do support them.
Yep.
So any discussion? We'll agree with that.
Yeah.
We'll just write agree in there.
Right.
Okay, we're on to the joint work program.
So this just relates to the partnership. So on the green table, I think this will be to do with supporting agencies.
Yes.
All that sort of thing. Just essentially noting that that outlines the actions moving forward, who leads them, who's involved. No changes recommended, although I can't actually see any submissions that it talk about.
Christchurch NZ was in there, wasn't it?
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, I think that might be further on.
Okay.
So I think that's probably fine.
Yes, we agree with that. Grant, unless there's something in the joint work program you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, just the comment in the text there, tools and incentives, and there's no there's no clarity on what these might be. I mean, they could range from guidance documents to urban design panels, or all of those sort of things. Presumably that'll get worked out. We don't need to actually stipulate that. Will we just leave it?
I think the professionals that are working through those will be well aware of those, Grant. So
yep.
I think we can be confident of that.
Yep.
Okay, so happy with that?
Yes.
Yep. So evidence base. So this is just all submissions that related to the documents that informed the plan. So there were submissions on the hui mai engagement. The key recommendation, I guess, is that in the draft spatial plan it included a summary of that, and the recommendation is to remove it from the final plan, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah. Everyone happy with that?
The communication engagement before hui mai was the GC 2050 engagement. How did that inform, or that process inform as well?
I don't know, Tracy might, but I think that the GC 2050 was a separate document, was it, or was it not? Yeah, so the engagement on that was on that particular, is that right, Tracy?
It was a separate process, but certainly the themes from that have come through and helped inform.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that initial section was intended to say this is what the we went out to the public on, this was the response, this is how it's responded to, and it's essentially saying that doesn't need to be in the final plan because it's about the
process.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everyone's comfortable with that?
Yes. Yep. It's on the table. That's right. We agree.
Okay.
Population projections.
We touched on this.
Yeah, we touched on this a bit before. I think this is probably more specifically about the submissions who questioned the assumption that there would be growth. And this talks about where the population estimates have come from.
So can I just go back up to the top? Sorry, just see the projected population of 700,000 is likely conservative for the long term. So are we saying there's probably going to be more? That word conservative.
That's that use of conservative coming from two different angles, isn't it?
I don't. My gut says we don't need to.
We don't need to clarify that. But all I'm saying is, I just wanted to know with the staff that the message there is that you're likely to have more than 700,000, or was that less than 700,000?
Speaking to, I couldn't speak directly on behalf of the report writers, but I think that was behind the thing of going to 1 million, so that there's that backup space that says if we get this, if it goes more than that, we've got a plan.
Yes, got a plan. So that's okay. I think that makes sense. Right, there's some changes proposed on page 6 of our latest version, which is under the key terms. There's a new key term, Greater Christchurch.
Oh.
Page 6 of the plan.
We happy with those words?
Yes.
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 Yep.
And on page 8, at the start of the introduction, there's some more clarification about just what we've been talking about. They use term by 2050, up to 700,000 people could be living in Greater Christchurch, which is 40% more than there is today, with the population potentially doubling to 1 million people in the future. It is important to plan for how growth this significant will be accommodated while looking at the environment, which comes back to Nicole's point about thinking ahead that, you know, it's a possibility that you're going to be getting up there this current century. So let's do some good spatial planning now.
Yeah.
Great.
And I think that's really brings home to me this idea of ensuring that this heavy rail corridor, because it takes us potentially to other places, north to Amberley, to Ashburton, you know, to accommodate other people if we need to, and also in through Darfield with the West Coast route. So.
Okay, so sounds like we're comfortable with these changes. Is there any more over the page?
I think it's around the same of just softening the language, I think.
Yes. Right, so it sounds like we agree with the recommendations here.
Okay.
PSUD.
So just confirming the decisions on the spatial plan are not a planning decision under the NPSUD, but the FDS component is part of what's required under the NPS. So this comes down to submitters that are concerned that the spatial plan doesn't satisfy the requirements of the MPSUD or the FDS component of it.
And we're getting some advice on that.
And I think that was some of Fiona's as well, when they were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I think a key thing in this section is essentially about saying that, which she obviously the legal advice might touch on too, but not identifying greenfield areas doesn't mean that you're not meeting the requirement to show where your where your capacity is being supplied, because the way that the spatial plan does that is to identify that intensification around centres and along those corridors.
Yes.
So there's a merits question as to whether that's appropriate, which is kind of what you talked about earlier in terms of that, the direction of growth. But I think what the officer's response here is saying is essentially, as long as we've shown it, we think we meet that requirement.
Yes. I think just with this one, let's go to the recommendation section.
Sorry, the other thing that's dealt with in this section, I think, is that the original plan that had give effect to. So this is on screen now.
Yes.
And there was a recommendation around that too, which I think was discussed. So recommendations are to update the joint work program.
That's on 89.
To note that the future development strategy component will be reviewed every 3 years in line with the NPS.
Yes. I mean, the joint work program.
It's the same.
New wording, that's on page 87.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you have updated as needed with a minimum of 3 no what I'm trying to say is that it's possibly could be reviewed in terms of the work program. It's quite a it's potentially could be more than that, faster than that. So I'm just thinking in terms of the implementation part of it. Is that appropriate here or not? We moved on.
No, let's discuss that.
Should be reviewed at a minimum.
You review the
3 years.
strategy overall within that time frame, but the implementation of the joint work program needs to be potentially a flexible process.
How's that set up, Tracy? The work program is partnership has developed a joint work program. An indication of what component will entail. The committee will receive biannual updates on the progress. I'm reading from page 83. Yeah, I think, Grant, those 3 and 5 year timeframes are going to roll around really quickly.
Right. And just let it evolve.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think to me, looking at the joint work program, there's a lot of work there to be done.
Yeah.
And the partnership that says in the document, the partnership will guide how that work will be prioritised and will be resourced as well. So that will be a live discussion.
Actually, and thinking about that too, the amount of work in terms of MRT detailed business cases that have to be until they're through, you kind of won't, yeah, okay.
I think the other thing is that these changes recommended are really to be clear that the future development strategy component has to be reviewed every 3
3
years
years.
under the NPS, and it's to distinguish it from the full plan itself being reviewed every 5 years. So I
This is
think
a
it's being
statutory
clear that
requirement, yeah.
we're not saying the partnership isn't going to meet the requirement of the NPS. It's saying in terms of what they have to do under that, this part will be reviewed every 3 years.
I'm wondering if maybe the text could then say, as required under the NPSUD, comma, the future development component of the
I
plan
think
will
that
be
would,
reviewed.
that would add, that's the reason for it.
Yeah, so it's just so that people don't go, oh, why?
Yes.
Why does
Well,
that part need to be done every 3
Hmm.
years?
So just adding to the end of that.
Or the
the
beginning?
beginning.
In accordance with.
Oh, here, so I'll just type it in here. So
Yes.
so something like
In accordance with the National Policy
NPSUD.
Statement, Urban Development 2022 or whatever it is, the Future Development
Yeah.
Strategy. Yeah.
just highlight that.
2022, I think, is the latest version. You might need to check that.
I'm pretty sure it's 2020, but
Okay.
at least they've secretly updated it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And the same with the other bit.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense. So, in references to text above, I think we are generally, we need to await this one, the advice of the legal,
Hmm.
the council appointed to look at this question, so I don't think it's appropriate for us to be recording any findings here quite yet.
Okay.
You happy with that?
Yeah.
So just in the box.
Do you want to look at the other recommendations? So notwithstanding the need to because there's some other recommendations in here that are probably a little bit separate.
Hmm.
So there's a few minor things like amending the legend of the maps to correspond with the symbols used,
Yeah.
adding in the,
Yes.
so this deals with the status of plan changes that has changed since the notification of the draft, including those. Adding further reference to the statutory and non-statutory tools to help improve feasibility of intensification.
Yep.
In fact, there's quite a few around that,
Okay.
just adding in the need to
Okay.
work on that.
So I think let's say, so we've got G going backwards. Is it C to G? Which are these ones that seem to be tidy ups? We're comfortable with, should we just record that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's F, it's H, we'll have to get advice on.
Okay, yeah.
Look.
Come back to H.
I think you lost that, oh yeah, no, there it is.
Otherwise happy with
G
A to G.
and I, is I okay? That's meaning
Might
figure
just wanna look at
5.
that.
It's figure 5, page 24.
Page 17.
Page 17 is that? Oh, yep. Page
So
17.
that's changing the give effect to to informs.
Oh, is that the new wording, is it?
Yeah, so the
Formed
box feeding into it will go informed
by- Okay,
by, and then the Greater Christchurch Spatial Plan
give effect to,
informs.
okay, got that. Yes,
So
so,
give effect to goes and informs goes in there.
wait on.
Mm.
So the given effect through is we're pointing down to the new planning documents. So we still have to, they have to give effect, not give effect. I'm confused now because I think we had to, we were being told that this is a have regard to document.
So you could change it to have regard to. I think the key point was saying give effect to has a particular meaning, and
Well,
it's
it
not.
does.
Yeah.
And we've been told all along that those plans need to have regard to this document, not give effect to it.
And isn't it suggesting that that bottom give effect to gets changed to informs?
Informs.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's the recommendation. The top one becomes all those strategic direction, inform the Greater Christchurch Spatial Plan, and then that
Yeah.
gets changed to informs those others.
Yeah, but why wouldn't it say those others have to have
Well, it depends on
regard
which
to?
way if you reverse it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of how you flow it.
You know,
You point the arrows back up and then have regard to, I guess.
No, it's
Oh.
it's whether the wording should be have regard to,
Regard to.
not
through-
just informs.
Yes, more than,
I
it's
think-
more than that because I've tested the lawyers and the officers
Yeah.
a lot of times, the legal
Yeah,
test.
yeah, I
is
absolutely get what you're saying.
Yes,
You'd probably
It's
put
just
have
the-
it
it's just the
having
flow of the diagram.
having regard to. Yeah, I know what you're saying. We can make the words work though if that's the
correct.
sentiment is that it should reflect the have regard to language. We
Yes.
can do that. Yeah.
okay,
You could say the following plans have regard to.
yes,
For
yes,
example,
yes,
the following document
yes.
or the following.
because the spatial plan isn't detailed enough to give effect
No.
No,
to that.
and it's not
Yeah.
the right legal test. So how do we capture that decision in our recommendations?
Update figure
What
5.
page is that on? 17.
So we're on 717 on the back version grant.
Given effect through to. It's not quite have regard. I know what you're saying, Tracy, but
Yeah,
we
I
can
do
fix
too.
it later.
Mhm.
Yep,
Or given regard to, that could work.
given regard to in.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there's another recommendation about including evidence-based feedback received through hui mai, which I'm not quite sure about that. Did you understand?
Where's that? Is that one of the early recommendations above? Does it
Oh, it's this bit here. So I'm in figure 5.
include the evidence base, which are the I don't understand that. No.
No, neither. I suspect it might be that there needs to be another box that says there's been this consultation undertaken, which has also formed the final plan. That could be something I can follow up with Ben if you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or Tracy
I
can.
just wonder if and I could be correct, but incorrect, but I think because we're removing, quite rightly, the panel's looking to remove what we heard at the start in terms of hui mai, this is the place to reflect that is informed
Yeah.
the plan and also the subsequent public consultation might be what they're seeking to achieve. Officers are seeking to achieve.
So they want to amend their flow diagram or something along those lines.
I wonder if they're looking to insert text, but I
Can we follow that up?
Yeah, I'll
through
follow that
Liz
up.
And Tracy,
Yeah.
please. We'll just make a note of that in our box. Okay, you got it already?
Isn't it just a text comment, a bullet, rather than an amendment to the diagram?
No, I think they are recommending that there's an amendment to the diagram. It's just because I've described it rather than actually showing it. I'm not quite clear.
Okay, I think it's safer for you to find that out for us rather than us speculating. Anything else to note here, panel?
No.
Okay, are we moving on?
Other feedback. I think this is just general feedback received. And the only specific thing here is about consideration of religious communities and the addition of word religious.
Yes,
Mm.
agree.
Yeah.
Panel?
Yeah.
And I think that is it.
Hallelujah.
Um,
Thank you, panel. Look, there are two things I noted that I did want to check back on. One of them was Tracy was finding out in that constraints document if
it is linked in there. So
it is linked in with Wahitapu.
correct. So it's part of that.
So
it should run on.
We're happy for it to run on and not break that paragraph. The other thing I wanted to cover was the definition and key terms of strategic infrastructure. This is really confusing in the way the MPSUD and regional plans and HPL deals with these terms: regionally significant infrastructure, strategic infrastructure, critical infrastructure. I'm of the mind that we should be defining what strategic infrastructure is in relation to the spatial plan, because so much depends on that and future planning decisions.
So did you say earlier on today that we weren't defining infrastructure itself?
Well, there is no definition of infrastructure itself, but there is a definition of strategic or regionally significant infrastructure. And we have this term key infrastructure, one of the maps. It's something I'd like to talk to Liz about and also get some vibe back from the officers, given that it's such an important term for interpreting this spatial plan as it relates to future Schedule 1 planning documents.
So can I clarify then, are you asking for it's your preference to define key infrastructure or
I'm not sure.
strategic or critical? You just don't know.
Okay, so there's key infrastructure, which is on one of the maps.
Yeah.
This document, term of art, is strategic infrastructure. We've heard that grants come across a term called critical infrastructure. And I think the term used as an exemption in a lot of the MPS documents is regionally significant infrastructure.
Yep.
We need to have a look at it.
And
You
we've
can have a
already
look at
got social infrastructure.
I think social infrastructure is okay because
Yeah.
we've got a defined term for that. But this is things that are really important that shouldn't always be bound by protection mechanisms because communities need them. So Liz, can you help me on this, or do you think?
I can, but I think we probably need to be cognizant of the way that it's used in the
In this plan,
document.
which is strategic infrastructure?
And it is sort of defined in that is what map 9 is. So if you go, I guess what I'm getting is you might not need to add it as a key term if it's effectively defined in map 9. So on page 52,
Oh, they've changed to the key strategic.
and it
Okay.
does say in there urban development should be carefully managed around strategic infrastructure. Key strategic infrastructure includes et cetera, see map 9. So in effect, I think it's saying the key strategic infrastructure that this relates to is what is in map 9.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's. I didn't realise that strategic was key, was added to the term of strategic. So I think you're probably right, Liz.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you're right, but that is in effect in the plan how it's used is to say this is what we mean. Here's the
Here it
here's
is.
the map.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So having just come out of Cyclone Gabrielle, are you satisfied that we've got here the key infrastructure would have helped in your region at that time?
Yes, but what worries me most is that the MPS has used a different term.
I think though that in this context, this is about the constraints.
Yes.
So this is in the context of saying, here are the key assets where we need to be careful about how we manage growth. Whereas I think in the NPSUD, it's talking about integration of growth with infrastructure.
Yes.
So I think that in this context, it's about saying, have we identified the strategic infrastructure where we need to carefully manage urban development in relation to?
Yeah.
So I think that's where it's okay, because that is the context in which this is used, whereas the NPSUD is saying you need to plan for growth in an integrated manner with the provision of infrastructure, which is different.
Yeah.
In that context, is it just the state highway roads that are strategic, or there's some other roads that are strategic?
Good question.
Have a look at, we just have the state highway corridor map, don't we?
Yeah, state highway rail corridor.
Yes, see that, which is part of our strategic thinking.
Yeah.
Right, look, well, I think just as a note at the end, I will turn my mind to what we're talking about, but I think Liz is correct that we've got a reasonable definition of how this works in this context of the spatial plan. Grant?
I was just thinking that there was a map showing an alternative route for Littleton. Is that a strategic route?
It's not on that map.
No,
Well, it's recommended to be added, but just let me have a look at the way that recommendation is worded.
It was an alternative route.
Where is that? I think it was that map, or is it map? I think that's in map 15, but
There it is there.
yeah.
Are the freight routes, is that the one?
No.
Road freight network,
yeah.
alternative freight routes.
It's the dotted
Down the
ones that
bottom
you
there,
can
it's that
just see at the
little
bottom.
those mouse prints I talked about.
Not the same. Yeah, so the short answer is it's adding it into map 15, which is the transport network, not adding it into map 9, because I don't think that's what adding it into map 9, I don't think is what the port has asked for. So I think they've asked for it to be acknowledged as an important route, but not said it should be elevated to being protected with respect to the impact of growth, if that makes sense.
Okay. So that's the end of our deliberation session for now. Next steps are proposed to Liz and I are working on this document. We'll issue an as is, where is on Friday afternoon. And we'll be talking Monday afternoon in a 2-hour Teams meeting. The main thing that you'll definitely get on Friday is an updated track change version of all of the words and the bits and pieces. Hopefully we'll have the mapping changes to be able to circulate by then.
So Ben has followed up today and
Yes.
is certainly hopeful of that.
Okay. We'll also, the panel will also issue a separate recommendations report, which will pick up each of our recommendations in the same order as the staff went through them and make some narrative based around our deliberations. That will be, I think, probably partially completed by Friday, but we'll do as much as we can, Liz and I, because we need to finalise this documentation for an agenda going out on the 1st of December, which is Friday week. No pressure. Okay.
And Thursday at 1 o'clock on the Teams.
Yeah.
Thursday to hear the legal person. Yes, that's the other.
Oh,
Other-
yes,
other
that one in the
element.
diary.
Thank you. No, I was just curious. Yeah, legal opinions.
Yeah, all got getting in the diary. Right, any other questions, comments, observations before we finish for today?
There was just one, it's quite a minor thing, but something that we didn't pick up today that came up on Thursday, which was just to confirm in the joint work program, in terms of the economic development plan, I think there was mention of, I think there was a discussion around whether mention should be made of other
Development agency.
government agencies, not just the urban growth partners, but I wasn't sure where that discussion got to as to whether they were already included.
No, there are at least, well, there's probably at least one other government department that's not included.
Okay, so is that something that, I'm not sure where it will fit in the report, but we'll make it fit. But you're comfortable that, so it refers currently to urban growth partners, economic development agencies, Canterbury employers, Chamber of Commerce, tertiary education providers. Is everyone comfortable if that gets expanded to also refer to
MB.
other government agencies?
Yeah.
Specific ones, Kate?
Maybe
If
it's
it's
relevant.
economic development, MB.
And what about education?
Oh, in terms of generally, or are we
Yes.
talking about economic development?
This is to do with the economic development plan.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think, sorry, Liz,
And generally, we are going to include Ministry of Education in our implementation plan.
just checking, Liz, when it's just on that point, it seems to reflect, I could have it wrong, but when we talked about priority areas where it's got supporting agencies, we had urban growth partners, developer sector. I think that was also where we discussed putting in relevant government.
Oh,
Departments.
yes, yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
If we just put,
Relevant
if we just put
government
relevant, what's it called? Relevant government ministries, that would cover whoever it needs to involve, I think.
Ministries and agencies, they're two different things. Sounds petty, but it is.
So is there some other wording you want put in?
Is there a word to cover agencies and ministries? Is that what
Yeah.
you're asking?
Yeah.
Oh.
If
Departments?
it's not, let's invent one.
You mean?
And we'll add it to the key
There'll
terms.
be a whole lot of
Crown
new.
part- Other Crown partners,
Yeah.
that'll cover it
Okay. You got that, Liz?
as required.
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. I knew we'd get through it today because I thought about the amount of work we had, and we worked really well together as a panel. To thank everyone for their contributions. And with that, we'll go to our karakia. Just to finish, so kia tau, te rangamarie, o te rangi, e te one, o papatunuku, e te tangune, o te tau, e whiang, ki runga, e te tātou, te Māori. Stop recording.